Welcome to a sanctuary of stillness. Tonight, as the gentle rhythm of the ocean waves washes away the noise of the world, we embark on a journey inward. In a society that constantly demands your attention, your submission, and your validation, how do you protect your inner peace? Through the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, we will explore the strength found in solitude, the hidden dangers of modern kindness, and the ultimate rules to commanding the respect you deserve. Breathe in the ocean air. Let go of the day. And let your mind find its fortress. The most dangerous man is the one who's silent. He doesn't chase, he doesn't beg, he doesn't post sad love quotes. He simply disappears into the shadows and builds himself. There's a reason why the most feared man in the room isn't the loud one. It's the silent one. And often, he's single. Society tends to look at single men with suspicion. Why isn't he in a relationship? He must be emotionally damaged. He probably can't commit. But what if we told you, the longer a man remains single, the more refined, more powerful, and more self-governed he becomes? Because a man who chooses solitude doesn't just sit in loneliness. He sharpens his mind. He trains his body. He filters out the noise of modern dating and builds a fortress of focus. And when he walks into a room, he doesn't seek validation. He's not trying to impress. He's not desperate for female attention. He wants the presence. This man isn't dangerous because he's toxic. He's dangerous because he's free. Free from emotional neediness. Free from societal timelines. Free from the fear of being alone. And that's exactly what makes him magnetic. While others waste years in meaningless relationships, he uses that time to become unshakable. This is not your average lonely guy scrolling dating apps at midnight. This is a man on a stoic path. A path of control, clarity, and quiet power. So if you've ever wondered why some men emerge from their years of solitude as complete forces of nature, you're about to find out. Your solitude isn't emptiness, it's preparation. A man who chooses to be alone is a man who refuses to be distracted. In today's world, being single is often seen as a sign of lacking. Lacking love, lacking intimacy, or worse, lacking worth. But the Stoic man knows better. He doesn't see solitude as punishment. He sees it as a season of power. Because when a man is single, not by accident, but by choice, he gains something most people never will. Time plus focus, plus full control of his energy. No arguments, no fake smiles at forced dinners, no emotional roller coasters. Instead, he channels everything into building himself. He masters discipline. He chases wisdom. He becomes physically strong and mentally untouchable. While others chase external validation, he builds internal confidence that can't be taken away. He reads when others scroll. He works out when others sleep. He reflects when others argue. And slowly he becomes a man who doesn't need to prove himself because his actions already do. In solitude, he doesn't become weaker. He becomes dangerously self-sufficient. Not bitter, not broken, but focused, calm, and harder to manipulate. That's why women who value true strength are drawn to these men. They don't seek attention. They command respect. Because while the world tries to tell men they need a relationship to feel complete, the Stoic man replies, I don't need someone to complete me. I complete myself. Arbitrary emotional mastery, his greatest weapon. A man who knows himself cannot be controlled by anyone else. The longer a man is single, the more time he has to study the world, and more importantly, himself. He begins to notice patterns, how people react when they're triggered, how emotions can cloud judgment, how attraction fades when built on insecurity. Most men never get this education. They jump from one relationship to the next, never facing their own demons. But the Stoic man, he turns solitude into a laboratory of the soul. He asks, why do I react this way? What triggers my anger? What do I truly want in a partner? Not just physically, but in values. This introspection leads to something powerful. Emotional mastery. He becomes the kind of man who can stay calm in chaos. He's not cold, he's composed. He doesn't get manipulated by sweet words or emotional drama. He sees through it, not with bitterness, but with clarity. And here's the paradox. The man who needs nothing emotionally is the man women want emotionally, because he's rare, he's stable, he's grounded. He becomes a lighthouse in a world full of emotional waves. And that's why, when he does enter a relationship, it's not out of loneliness, but a wow, my meant to. He doesn't seek comfort, he seeks truth. And a man like that, he's not just attractive, he's unforgettable, with a power of radical freedom. He who is not tied down moves the world. When a man stays single by choice, he experiences something most never will: radical freedom. No emotional blackmail, no walking on eggshells, no compromising his values to keep the peace. He eats when he wants, trains when he wants, travels where he wants. But it goes deeper than just lifestyle. This freedom reshapes his identity. He doesn't live for others' expectations, not society's, not families, not a partner's. He lives by his own code, and that's dangerous in the best way. Because a man who owes nothing to approval becomes unshakable. He's harder to manipulate. He won't be guilt-tripped. He sees red flags from a mile away and walks away without hesitation. He's not desperate for connection, which makes any connection he does choose incredibly intentional. Most men are scared of this level of independence. They confuse being alone with being unloved, but Stoic psychology teaches otherwise. He who is free from attachments is free to love more purely. Not out of need, not out of fear, but out of a strength. Women sense this. They feel the difference between a man who needs them and a man who chooses them. And the second one, that man is unforgettable because he brings peace, not pressure, presence, not pretense, freedom, not fear. Selective standards. He chooses, he doesn't chase. The Stoic man doesn't ask, am I good enough for her? He asks, is she aligned with my values? Time alone sharpens a man's vision. He starts seeing what really matters in a partner. It's no longer about looks or surface-level charm. It's about energy, integrity, emotional maturity. He's no longer impressed by validation, attention, or flirtation. He's looking for peace, not performance. The longer he's single, the sharper his standards become. He knows the cost of inviting the wrong energy into his life because he's been at peace and he refuses to give it up for drama. This makes him incredibly hard to impress. Not because he's arrogant, because he's awake. He's not interested in chasing. He's interested in choosing. There's a difference. Most men chase because they fear being alone. He chooses because He knows the strength of solitude. And women notice. They sense that this man won't tolerate games. He won't chase for attention. He won't fall for manipulation masked as affection. He makes her earn his presence, not with effort, but with authenticity, because he's already done the work on himself. He's built his peace, his body, his purpose. He doesn't need someone to complete him, just someone who respects him. And that's the paradox. The man who doesn't chase is the one women start chasing, not because he's playing games, but because he's grounded. He's the rare one. And in a world of desperate boys pretending to be men, he stands out by standing still. Iron or purpose-driven, he becomes unstoppable. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. When a man is single long enough, something incredible happens. He either breaks into him or he builds. The ones who break chase distractions, parties, hookups, validation. But the ones who build, they become dangerously focused. They redirect all the energy that might have gone into relationships into becoming someone of substance. He starts training harder, thinking deeper, reading more, sleeping less, dreaming bigger. He becomes obsessed, not with women, but with right purpose. And that obsession makes him magnetic. He's no longer floating, hoping to be saved by love. He's now marching, guided by a mission bigger than himself. While others waste time proving they're desirable, he builds value that makes him undeniable. Women notice this shift. They don't always understand it, but they feel it. This man moves differently. He speaks with certainty. He walks with intention. He doesn't beg for time. He owns it. That's why he becomes dangerous. Not to others, but to the system that relies on weak men. The system wants him soft, distracted, emotionally dependent, but he's hard to manipulate because he doesn't fear being alone. Why? Because he's full? Not full of himself, full of direction, full of growth, full of inner power. He's the man who won't trade peace for popularity, and that makes him rare. That makes him respected. He's not playing the game anymore. He's building a whole new arena. Stoic wisdom, the true strength of the modern man. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius. Being single isn't a flaw or a failure. It's a challenge, a test from life. The Stoics teach us to embrace challenges, to see them not as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow. When a man stands alone, he is forced to face his inner world. He confronts fears, doubts, and insecurities. And through this confrontation, he discovers his true value. Not from others, but from within. This inner strength is the foundation of real confidence. It's the calm in the storm, the quiet power that needs no validation. A modern man's worth isn't measured by relationships, but by how well he masters himself. Because a man who controls his mind, his desires, and his emotions, that man is unstoppable. He doesn't seek to fill a void with someone else's presence. He is complete on his own. And here's the paradox. When you become whole alone, you become irresistibly attractive to others. That's the essence of Stoicism applied to love and life. Master yourself and the world will follow. At the Stoic man, built in solitude, unleashed in the world. A man is not truly strong until he learns to stand alone, with clarity, with conviction, with calm. Being single doesn't mean being lonely. It means you're in the forge. The time you spend alone isn't a punishment, it's preparation. While others are lost in noise and distraction, you've chosen to face the silence, to meet the only person who will always be with you, yourself. And in that space, something sacred happens. You stop chasing validation. You start building value. You stop begging to be chosen. You become the one who chooses. That's what Stoicism is all about. It's not coldness, it's clarity. It's not rejecting emotion, it's mastering it. Because the man who rules himself will never be ruled by anyone else. And that's what makes you dangerous. Not because you're cruel, but because you can walk away. Because your happiness is not on sale. Because your peace is just too expensive to rent. So to every man watching this, if you're single, don't rush. Don't settle. Don't doubt. Use this time to build, to heal, to become so aligned with your purpose that the right woman will either rise to meet you or get out of your way. Because a stoic man doesn't chase love. He attracts it effortlessly by becoming whole. True power begins in the quiet forge of self-mastery. When you learn to embrace solitude, you become dangerous to a world that relies on your dependency. But a strong inner world is only the first step. When we step out of our solitude and into society, a new trap awaits us. It is the trap of blind generosity. Let us now discover how your unguided kindness might be quietly destroying the life you are trying to build. You might think that's kindness, that always being helpful, never upsetting anyone, is a sign of being a good person. But if you're saying yes just to avoid making others uncomfortable while pushing yourself into exhaustion, resentment, or confusion, that's no longer kindness. That's self-abandonment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The Stoics didn't live to please people. They lived to protect the integrity of their minds, something no one can take from you unless you give it away. Every time you say yes when your heart says no, you dig yourself deeper into a hole. With each agreement that goes against your values, you shrink a little. In your relationships, at work, even in your own sense of self. Soon you start waking up with a quiet kind of dread, not because you're overworked, but because you're living someone else's life. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be selfish. It teaches that living with reason is the first duty of a mature human being. And that reason will tell you clearly when to help and when to stop. Epictetus, a slave who became a philosopher, once said, "No one is free who is not master of himself." You can help the whole world, but if you can't master your own yes, you're giving up the most vital freedom of all, your inner freedom. So the next time someone asks you for something, take a breath. Ask yourself, do I truly want to do this? Am I betraying any of my boundaries or values? If I say no, could that actually be the most respectful choice for both of us? True kindness isn't measured by how often you nod. It's measured by whether your yes comes from strength, not from fear. 2, you let others take advantage of your kindness. Have you ever felt this way? You help someone with all your heart, thinking you're doing the right thing, but instead of gratitude, they come back with more demands. Bit by bit, they take your time, your energy, your patience, and your trust. And the moment you stop giving, they turn away, or worse, they blame you. Kindness without boundaries quickly becomes a resource to be exploited. The Stoics understood this well. They weren't against helping others, but they held fast to one core principle. Give because you choose to, not because you're being controlled. Epictetus once said, "No one is free who is not master of himself." If you're constantly acting out of fear of disappointing someone, of being judged, then you're letting others control your mind. And to the Stoic, that's the greatest failure. Real kindness shouldn't drain you. It should come from intention and awareness. Only when you give willingly, within the limits you've set, does your kindness have true value and lasting strength. Don't get it twisted. Just because someone needs help doesn't mean you have to give it. Just because someone shows up with a sad face doesn't mean it's your job to save them. You are not responsible for fixing the whole world, especially not at the cost of breaking yourself. Remember, you weren't born to be someone else's background character. You were born to live with integrity, strength, and intelligent compassion. 3, you don't set personal boundaries. Have you ever felt frustrated or uncomfortable, but still couldn't bring yourself to speak up? Do you let others intrude on your time, your emotions, even your private life? Just because you don't want to be inconvenient? That's not kindness. That's the absence of personal boundaries, and it can quietly destroy you from within. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In Stoic philosophy, the mind is sacred space. You can't control the world, but you can and must control how you allow the world to enter your life. Personal boundaries aren't walls to push people away. They're maps that show others how to treat you with respect. Without them, you let other people's emotions take over yours. You let their schedules overrun your own. You let society's expectations shape who you are. And slowly you lose yourself in a role that was never meant for you. Stoicism doesn't teach selfishness. It teaches you to know where you end and where others begin. Remember, boundaries are not rejection. They are the purest form of healthy love for yourself and for others. If someone is crossing a line, have the courage to say something. You don't have to yell. You don't have to explain yourself. A simple sentence like, "I need some space right now," or "I'm not able to help with that today," is enough to stand your ground. And here's the beautiful part. When you set boundaries, the kind people will respect them. The ones who leave, they're life's natural filter. Always remember, no one can enter your mind unless you open the door. 4, you sacrifice yourself to be liked. We all want to be liked, to be accepted, to feel seen and valued by others. That's a deeply human instinct. But the danger begins when we start trading parts of ourselves just to earn a nod of approval from the outside world. Have you ever done something you didn't believe in just to make someone else happy? Have you ever smiled when you were breaking inside, agreed with something you didn't believe, or stayed silent in the face of injustice? Just because you were afraid that speaking up might cost you someone's affection? If so, you're not alone. But you also need to know that's the fastest way to lose touch with who you truly are. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Don't let the applause of others drown out the voice of your own reason." In Stoic philosophy, the wise don't live for the approval of the crowd. They live by the harmony between their reason and their actions. When you stay true to your values, even if others don't understand, you remain at peace. But if you keep bending yourself just to be liked, you'll eventually melt into a shape you no longer recognize. And one day you'll look in the mirror and ask, who am I really living for? Epictetus put it bluntly, you can either be loved or you can maintain your dignity, but rarely both. The approval of the crowd is fleeting. Today they cheer you on. Tomorrow they may turn away. But your inner truth, your courage, your integrity, your ability to live in alignment with your ideals, that's something no one can take from you. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink. The people who truly care about you will respect your honesty and your boundaries. So the next time you catch yourself doing something just to be liked, pause and ask, am I doing this because it's right or because I'm afraid of being disliked? Because being liked is a blessing, but being true to yourself, that's freedom. 5, you're afraid of disappointing others. Have you ever said yes to something just because you were afraid someone would be upset if you didn't? Maybe it was a favor, a work expectation, or even a role someone else assigned to you. You agreed, even when your heart said no. because the thought of letting them down felt unbearable. But pause for a moment and consider this. Every time you choose to please someone else by going against your own truth, you're disappointing yourself. In Stoic philosophy, the real tragedy isn't that others might be unhappy. It's that you betray your own reason and values. Epictetus said it best. Never sell your soul just to be accepted at a cheap price. If someone is disappointed because you were honest, because you protected your boundaries, that disappointment says more about them than it does about you. It means they were attached to a version of you that wasn't real. Marcus Aurelius also reminded us, do what is right. The rest doesn't matter. You can't control other people's emotions. What you can control is showing up truthfully, with strength, with kindness, and without abandoning yourself in the process. Because sometimes disappointing others is necessary, so that you don't end up disappointing the one person who matters most. You. 6. You use kindness to avoid conflict. Have you ever smiled, nodded, and said, "It's okay," while inside you were hurt, angry, or overwhelmed? You didn't want to argue. You didn't want others to see you upset. So you took the safe route. Be kind. Stay quiet. At first glance, that might seem noble, but in truth, it's a form of avoidance. And over time, it causes you to slowly disappear from your own life. Stoics weren't afraid of confrontation. They didn't seek it, but they didn't run from it either, because they understood. A peaceful life isn't one without storms. It's a mind strong enough to weather the storm without losing itself. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Say what you mean. Do what you believe. Don't let fear cripple your actions." When you use kindness as a shield to avoid hard conversations, you're not just deceiving others, you're betraying yourself. You deny people the chance to know the real you. And worse, you miss the opportunity to build relationships based on truth, instead of just comfort. Stoicism teaches that temporary discomfort is better than long-term resentment. An honest conversation, even if uncomfortable, is far more valuable than quiet endurance. Facing conflict isn't about winning. It's about protecting your clarity, your truth, and your self-respect. Because if you have to pretend to agree just to keep the peace, then that peace isn't real. It's conditional silence. Learn to speak your truth, calmly, without anger. Because when you find the courage to speak up, you don't just free yourself, you give others permission to be real too. Kindness isn't a mask. Kindness is strength, when it stands side by side with honesty. 7. You think saying no is selfish. Have you ever felt guilty for turning someone down? Worried that if you don't help, people might think you're cold or selfish? You want to be the kind one, but sometimes you forget that saying no doesn't always mean you're being unkind. In truth, saying no is an act of self-protection, and sometimes it's the best thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for the other person too. Stoicism teaches, when you say no, you're refusing to force yourself into something that doesn't align, and that's essential for inner freedom. When you turn down a request that goes against your values, you're not just protecting your well-being, you're also teaching others to respect your boundaries. Because if you keep saying yes just to keep people happy, you're creating dependency, both theirs and yours. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't let guilt drag you into things you don't want to do." That doesn't mean you should be cold or distant, but saying no is how you stay rooted. It's how you build a meaningful life, one that reflects your time, energy, and deeper values. Saying no isn't selfish. It's the courage to live with integrity. So remember, you don't have to please everyone. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to say no. 8. You confuse kindness with weakness. Kindness is a beautiful virtue, but if you're not careful, it can be easily exploited. You might think you're being kind, but in reality, you may be acting out of fear. Fear of being seen as selfish, or fear of standing your ground. And when you fail to set boundaries, your kindness can slowly turn into a form of weakness. Stoicism makes it clear. Kindness does not mean always saying yes. Stoics understand that pleasing others is not the goal of life. Their goal is to live with reason, to stay grounded in values they believe in, not just go along with what others expect. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Don't do anything that goes against your reason, and don't live according to someone else's expectations if they don't reflect who you truly are." Kindness isn't about saying yes to everything. It isn't about bending over backwards to be liked. True kindness comes from strength, from knowing when to help and when to say no in order to protect your well-being and your core values. If you're only helping others because you're afraid of being seen as weak or selfish, then you're not helping them, and you're definitely not helping yourself. Weakness isn't in saying no. Weakness is when you're too afraid to hold the line on what truly matters to you. Real kindness comes from inner strength. It comes from the power to choose when to give and when to hold back. True kindness is strength, not weakness. As you've seen, kindness can be a double-edged sword. If you're not careful, kindness can destroy you, making you live someone else's life and blur your true essence. But the key is, kindness is not weakness. True kindness only exists when you know when to say no, when to set boundaries, and when to stand firm in what you believe. This doesn't mean you have to become cold or indifferent. On the contrary, you can still be kind, but live with intention and conviction. When you choose to help, it should be a voluntary decision from the heart, not driven by fear or the desire to be liked. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The only way to truly live freely is to live according to your own reason." So don't be afraid to say no, don't fear disappointing others, and don't fear showing your true self. When you live authentically, not only can you help others meaningfully, but you also maintain strength, independence, and mental freedom. Remember, true kindness isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about knowing when to help and when to protect yourself. And that is the path to a life of honesty, freedom, and peace. Kindness without boundaries is not a virtue. It is a slow surrender of your personal sovereignty. When you allow the world to take without asking, you silently teach them to value you less. But knowing where to draw the line is only half the battle. You must also stop the subtle, toxic habits that erode your dignity every single day. Next, we will uncover the 5 specific actions you must eliminate immediately to reclaim absolute respect. Something you demand. It's what naturally flows when you stop doing the things that diminish your value. And now, it's time to face the truth. If you're still doing these things, no matter how hard you try, people will continue to look down on you. Let's start with the first behavior, the one most people fall into without even realizing. 1. You always make excuses and never take responsibility. Nothing makes people lose respect for you faster than constantly shifting blame. You're late? You blame the traffic. You fail? It's your boss, your environment, or bad luck. You hurt someone? You say, "I didn't mean to," and move on as if it's not your problem. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In Stoic philosophy, the person worthy of respect isn't the one who's perfect, but the one who has the courage to say, "I was wrong," and then works to become better. People respect those who don't hide behind excuses. They admire those who take full ownership, even when it hurts their pride. Because true dignity doesn't come from appearances. It comes from character. Stoic in practice. Next time you mess up, don't explain it away. Just say, "I was wrong. I'll fix it." That's it. And you'll earn more respect in that one moment than a dozen excuses could ever buy. Respect starts with you. And when you take responsibility, people start to trust you and look up to you. 2, you constantly complain. Strong people don't whine. Few things shrink your presence and drain your power more than constant complaining. You complain about your job, your coworkers, the weather, your partner, even about not having a partner. You think you're just venting, but in reality, you're spreading negative energy everywhere you go. Epictetus once said, "Don't waste your time blaming others or the world. The only thing truly within your control is your own mind and how you respond." People don't respect those who suffer loudly. They respect the ones who suffer quietly and carry on with dignity. When you complain, you hand your power over to your circumstances. When you stay calm and take action, you reclaim control over your life. Stoic in practice. When something bad happens, don't broadcast it. Step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? Can I respond like someone who is grounded and strong? People don't admire you for how well you can rant. They admire you for your calm, your resilience, and your refusal to let the world shake your inner peace. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, if it doesn't harm your character, it hasn't truly harmed you. So when you stop complaining, you don't just grow up. You start becoming someone others look up to. 3, you react impulsively and lose your calm. In a world full of noise, stress, and constant pressure, people don't judge you by your words. They judge you by how you react. You get angry when criticized. You snap back when challenged. You lose your temper when things don't go your way. These knee-jerk reactions are not signs of strength. They're signs that you haven't mastered yourself. And according to Stoic philosophy, if you can't control your emotions, you can't earn the respect of others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You don't have to have an opinion. You don't have to react. If you can remain still and composed, you've already won." Calmness isn't coldness, it's inner strength. The ability to remain steady even when the world around you isn't. The impulsive person is easy to provoke, easy to manipulate, easy to throw off balance. The calm person, unshakable, grounded, and quietly commanding respect wherever they go. Stoic practice. Next time you feel provoked, pause for 5 seconds. Ask yourself, will this reaction elevate my character or pull me down? Master your reaction before it masters you. People may forget what you said in anger, but they won't forget that you lost your composure. True respect belongs to those who don't let emotions control them, but instead give their emotions purpose. Let your calmness and silence speak for you. Because in a noisy world, grace under pressure is a rare kind of power. 4, you don't keep your promises, and it erodes trust. Few things make people lose respect for you faster than saying one thing and doing another. Every time you make a promise you don't keep. Every time you create a plan but fail to follow through, you're quietly chipping away at your own credibility. To a Stoic, a promise isn't just words, it's a contract of honor. Once you speak it, your integrity is tied to it. Epictetus once said, "Never let your words run ahead of your actions. The wise live by doing, not by promising." When you say you'll show up and you don't, when you say you'll change but fall into the same old patterns, when you say I'll do it but have no intention of following through, people start learning not to believe you. And with that, respect begins to fade, quietly and without warning. Stoic philosophy reminds us of something powerful. The weak make promises to please others. The strong stay silent and act to protect their self-respect. Stoic practice. 1. Only make promises you know you can keep. 2. Treat your words like a bond. Follow through as if your honor depends on it. 3. If you break a promise, own it. Don't make excuses. Respect isn't given, it's built, brick by brick, through consistent actions. If you want to be seen as trustworthy, start with the smallest thing. Keep your word. People may forgive your mistakes, but no one respects someone who doesn't mean what they say. So if you want others to look at you with confidence, if you want your words to carry weight, then don't talk, doctor. Because in the end, action is the language of those who are truly respected. 5. You're a people pleaser, and you lose yourself trying to keep everyone happy. You always say yes. You smile even when you don't want to. You agree when everything inside you says no. Why? Because you're afraid of upsetting people. Because you're afraid of being disliked. Because you're afraid of not being accepted. But remember the words of Marcus Aurelius, if you live to please everyone, you'll lose your soul piece by piece. Respect doesn't come from weakness or fear. It comes from the boundaries you're willing to set and the values you refuse to compromise. The more you try to please everyone, the more invisible you become. People might take advantage of you. They might pity you. They might even like you, but they won't respect you. In Stoic philosophy, self-mastery is everything. A Stoic isn't controlled by other people's emotions and doesn't live for the approval of the crowd. You can be kind. You can be respectful, but don't abandon yourself. Remember this, when you say no, people might not like it, but they will respect you. When you stand your ground, some may push back, but they'll see you differently. When you stay true to your values, you don't need to shout. People will quietly take notice. Stoic practice. 1. Before any decision, ask yourself, will this betray who I am? 2. When you feel pressured, practice saying no without guilt. 3. Spend more time listening to yourself than chasing the emotions of others. The people who earn real respect aren't the ones who try to please everyone. They're the ones who have the courage to stay true to themselves, even if it means being misunderstood, judged, or rejected. And the same is true for you. You weren't born to be a shadow of other people's expectations. You're here to live a life of meaning, strength, and quiet confidence. Final takeaway, people pleasers are pitied. People with principles are respected. Which one will you choose to be? True respect begins with you. Here's something worth remembering. Respect doesn't come from shallow compliments or the approval of the crowd. It comes from the strength of your principles. Real respect is earned when you stand firm in your values, when you know what's right, and you choose to live by it, even under pressure. Every action you take today, every choice, every response, shapes how others see you. If you're constantly bending to please everyone, respect will stay just out of reach, like waves that kiss the shore but never settle. But when you live with integrity, clarity, and courage, you build a respect that is deep, steady, and lasting. Life isn't about pleasing everyone. You are you, and you have the right to stand tall, to live your truth without fear of judgment. When you respect yourself, you naturally draw respect from others. You don't need to chase praise or seek constant approval to feel worthy. True worth comes from within, from the courage to be fully yourself. Starting today, be stronger. Don't let other people's emotions control your decisions. Set clear boundaries so others know who you are and what you will and won't tolerate. Respect yourself and real respect will follow. So don't wait. Don't fear rejection. Don't fear losing people. Be who you were meant to be and let the world see you exactly as you are. Start the change today. You deserve a life without regret, one of strength, authenticity, and true respect. The night is deep, and the path before you is now clear. Remember the sacred blueprint of the Stoic mind. Independence in your thoughts, clarity in your actions, and absolute firmness in your boundaries. This is the ultimate key to mastering your own life. You no longer need to beg for respect or fear being alone. You are the captain of your soul, as steady as the deep ocean. Rest now. Let the waves carry you into a peaceful, powerful sleep.